we're going on to the sequel now,
Sequel, yeah.
correct?
And then
Okay.
if you wanted to, we were talking about Randy a little bit. That could be a
Oh, I
good
love
place
him.
to start for the sequel
Yeah.
because that's probably the biggest moment in that movie when he does get killed.
I know. I was pissed because the fact that he survived the first movie, I kind of thought, you know, maybe he would be. I didn't think he'd be in them all because we're going to talk about, like, I obviously had never seen. I had briefly seen bits and I feel like I'd seen the second one, but it was like one of them things where I like walked in the room, watched like a scene or two and walked out and like caught it like I had never seen it all the way through. So I didn't know who was going to survive. I really seriously thought Nev Campbell was not going to be in the fourth movie, which we'll talk about when we get to that. But I thought Randy, because okay, they had him survive. It was kind of like, oh, he actually survived, the first one. I thought he was gonna like stay at least until the end, like of the movie or something. I don't know. I just didn't really expect him to die, so they did fuck with my expectations with that one. Cause
I know, and
and I
that was
loved
like
his
the middle.
character.
That was like the middle of the movie, and that sort of propelled the movie for the rest of
Yeah,
it.
I know. I was so pissed. I'm
But
like,
he was a
fuck.
great character, and there's always the thing where you know I never think it's important, but there's always a thing where like most movies they'll be like I think it's called a viewpoint character, like it's the character you're supposed to identify with and bring you
Right.
and
It's like
go through it
the
with. And I
audience
guess that's more
relates to
Sidney.
them.
I
Yeah,
guess it's more Sidney, but as horror movie fans, Randy
he's
is the one
definitely
you're related
relatable.
to.
Yeah,
I think they
he's
were
like
all
us
supposed to be horror movie
personified in
fans,
movies.
but no, he
Yeah,
really is. But he's
yeah.
definitely
Remember
like
when
it's
he's like
fucking.
talking about Jamie? He's like Jamie Turnaround or whatever he's saying. I forget. It's so funny when like Michael
Jamie Lee
gets up and
Curtis is on TV,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then there's the meta thing where he's also Jamie Kennedy, and
Oh
Ghostface is
yeah.
behind him, so he's talking to himself
Oh
too, and
yeah,
Jamie
yeah.
Lee Curtis. And we kind of skipped over his great scene in the first movie where he's in his video store explaining, that everybody's a suspect to Billy and Stu, and he just screams that, and then everybody looks over at him.
Yeah, and doesn't he say something like, "I could even be a suspect because you wouldn't expect me" or something? Like I really like how
Yeah,
he explains all the cliches and all the, you know, stereotypes of
and he was such a
horror.
that 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 character or that kind of character is so important to the series that they did give him his cameo in the third one so he could
I
explain the
know.
rules of trilogies,
Of
and then
trilogies, yeah.
Scream 4 had to introduce a couple characters like him.
Yeah, in order to fill that sort of that
Yeah,
was
like
that I
remake
was so
rules.
sad when he died though. I was like, no, I didn't expect it. I thought it like I said, I thought if it was going to happen, it was going to happen at the very end of the movie because it was like,
Yeah,
he was a really likable character and blah 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 whatever. He survived the first one, so I was like, okay, they're not going to kill him. And then when he actually died, I was like, what the fuck?
that whole scene I think was very suspenseful and well done when he
Oh, when
was
he
on the phone with the
calls,
killer and
yeah,
Gale and Dewey are running around the campus trying to find him because he said
yeah,
he can watch them, and it turns out he was in the van. And
yeah. Pretty
I
effective
guess,
scene for being all in the daylight too.
yeah, I guess the ghost face in that scene, the one who killed Randy, I guess was Mrs. Loomis,
Oh
because
yeah,
at
we're
the
just
end
gonna
of the
talk about
movie,
that bitch.
yeah, at the end of the movie, she said to Sidney that you know that Randy said something bad about Billy. I think he said like, "What a rat-faced, homo-repressed mama's
Yeah,
boy" or something.
I
And she
love
said, yeah, she said he was said something bad about Billy, and she said she got a little knife happy, so she's the one that killed him.
that killed him. Yeah, yeah, that was sad, but I mean, at least he did. I'm glad that they actually
It
gave him
was
his little
a,
cameo in the third one. That's awesome. That they
I
found
will
a way to
say,
sort of bring him back without bringing him back.
yeah, you said like you didn't really like that they killed him off. Um, for me, and this is something that I felt was lacking in the sequels.
Hmm.
As much as I liked him as a character, and as much as I like Sidney, Gale, and Dewey, I kind of don't like that they never, I guess, had the balls
To
to
kill them all,
three and
kill
four
one
to
of them all.
kill somebody else.
Yeah,
I felt like they introduced that term in Scream 4. The new nerds were talking. They
the
said
new
that
and yeah,
Sydney. They said something like, "Oh, you can't kill Sydney. She's victim royalty." It's a very cool term, I think. But
yeah,
it's kind of it was fun because I like those characters a lot. But
right,
it's like you knew by that point, like that no, that nobody, they're not gonna die. They're safe.
right,
But at the same time, I also like that because they're so experienced and smart that they would be the ones to survive over and
right.
over.
I think if one of them had died, it would have been good shock value, but then I just would have been kind of like feeling like empty and pissed off
I guess,
afterwards, like to really process
yeah,
it.
I can agree with that too.
But
I think, yeah, on the flip side, the movies realized that they needed Randy, So
Right.
that's why they did. So if they had killed, Dewey or Gale or Sidney, then like the next movie there would have been that void.
Exactly. That's what I'm. Yeah. And even
Yeah.
if they had waited till the fourth movie and they did actually kill Sidney off, or Dewey,
I
that
always thought,
probably would have been all right.
yeah, I always thought, I'll just throw this in here now, but I always thought that Gale should have been the one to die in that movie. I don't know why, I just felt like it would
In
have
the
been,
fourth movie.
yeah, I mean, she was stabbed and hospitalized, but it's like, I mean, they really weren't serious if they stabbed her in the shoulder. Like, okay,
Right.
they didn't
That's
even,
that's how you kind of know. Yeah.
but, but no, back to Scream 2. No, that whole scene was definitely, it's probably the best scene of the movie because it's so
Like,
surprising and effective
yeah.
and one
And
of the
it's creepy the way he's like, I can see like he's can see them right from where he is,
I
but they
know.
don't know where the
And
fuck he is
I love when Gale and Dewey were running around and like jumping on people and
with their cell
like
phones
Dewey
and yanking
tackled
phones. And,
somebody down
yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, then Gale takes the phone from somebody and she said, "Who's this?" And they said, "Who's this?" And she's just like, "Gale Weathers, author of the Woodsboro Murders." And it's like,
I know
"Okay,
she
Gale,
had to say that.
it's not. We know that's not the killer, so I don't know why you're
I know she
bragging."
had to say that. She's bragging. I know her little subtle moments like that are so great. Oh my god.
Yeah. If there's nothing else on Randy, and we just mentioned her, I love Gale in this movie. It might
Oh,
be
her hair. Shout out to her pretty hair in this movie.
I know, I know. It looks really good. I love the red streaks, and even there was like Dewey said once that like he was mad at her or something for mistreating Sidney, and he just walks away and says, "And nice streaks."
Yeah, yeah. I love that too.
But she
The
was
fact that
great.
it's acknowledged is funny.
Yeah, and she was just as you know after the story, she wanted to ambush Sidney at the beginning of the movie with Cotton, and
Oh
not
yeah,
tell
Cotton. We haven't
her.
talked about him yet.
Yeah, well, because he just had had one brief shot in the
Oh,
first
in the
movie.
first one,
He
yeah.
becomes kind of an important character too, but
Right.
yes, that was fucked up for her to do that too, to ambush Sydney, and then that's when she gets her next much deserved bitch slap or whatever. She gets knocked to the
Yeah.
ground.
Wait, isn't the second one also? Because again, been a little bit of time, so I might get the third and second one mixed up a little bit with certain things. Is the second one the one where Gale is running from Ghostface and she ends up in that like soundproof like
Yeah,
recording thing?
it's
Okay.
this one. Yeah, that was a great sequence. I'm glad
Yeah, because
you.
I like that a lot. I remember, yeah. And then doesn't Dewey end up going in there?
He
And
does, and it's even done so well because it is like supposed to be a soundproof room, and she can't
yeah,
hear him. Like he's yelling to her, and her
yeah,
back
and
is, and then when Ghostface stabs him and pins him up against the soundproof glass, it's just silent. Like you
yeah, and
can't.
she's like, I thought he died there, honestly. So a couple of times I thought they were gonna like to me, you've seen the movies for years and years, you're so used to them. But for me going into them like blind, I seriously did think eventually I this is my whole perception was Nev Campbell, what's her name? Courtney Cox and David Arquette were gonna be in the first three, but then the fourth one was gonna be this off the wall random last scream they wanted to make for money to cash in because it was years and years later. So I thought in the third one
Right,
of the major characters was gonna die. I didn't think it'd be Sydney because the final girl always survives. That cliche, always has been a thing. So I didn't
right.
think it'd be her, but I really did think so. When he did get stabbed, when David Arquette, Dewey, when he got stabbed in that soundproof, I was like, oh wow, he actually gonna die? So
I
I never
think
went into it like, oh, they're not gonna kill anybody off. Like that was my
right,
whole perception of it.
right, which is good on the first viewing. It's effective, but I think
Exactly.
even he was stabbed too in the first movie, and then at the end you see him wheel
Oh
out on a
yeah,
stretcher, and it's the same with this one. And I think both times they originally were gonna
we're
kill
gonna
him,
kill.
and then
Yeah,
they added the shot at the end, and they were like, no, we can't do that.
we can't do that.
And
Yeah,
then he
no,
has
it would have been
his
effective, but I'm glad. Me personally, I am glad that all three survived in the end because that just makes me feel better. But I do see what you're saying because you and I've always talked about, again, bringing Resident Evil up like we always do. But if they eventually have the balls to kill off a major Resident Evil character, whether it's Chris, Jill, Claire, we always talk about maybe Ada, like that would be pretty interesting because of just how dangerously she lives and mysteriously she is anyway. So, I mean, they killed off Wesker, which was, I think, stupid, but I think if it was an actual main protagonist. It would give the series more depth. So I do see what you're saying when it comes to the Scream movies because the three of them do always survive. But I like that just because I like all three characters. But
it's nice and it's unique, and maybe it's a good thing because it's like maybe that's another reason why maybe they didn't kill any of them, despite the fact that, or on top of the fact that they were fan favorites and people liked them, that they were also maybe turning it on its head, like everybody dies in slasher movies, and the fact that
Yeah,
those people
yeah.
survive
That's
consistently,
true, because it's very rare that more than just the final girl survives. I mean, we do have
and
Donald
often
Pleasance
even final
in
girls eventually get it.
eventually, exactly. So I do think, I mean, I remember us talking about um Loomis and Donald Pleasance's character being very unique to Halloween, which it completely is. There's really nobody else like him. But
Yeah,
when it comes to the Scream movies and the fact that they're kind of there's kind of three final girls, if you will, besides, well, Dewey's a guy, but you know what I mean. There's like
final
that,
people.
yeah, final people. It doesn't just have, I mean, obviously Sidney is the pivotal final girl, but like I
Yeah,
do kind of like that, and
or
it is,
final
I'm,
survivors or something.
yeah, and I'm just now thinking about it, like there is really nothing else sort of like that. So that is interesting that it's the three of them.
Yeah,
And they're all good characters. It's not just like they're these one
they're all
note
really good,
idiot.
and they're
Yeah.
all different enough to,
Yeah, to stand on their own and be. Yeah. So that's interesting that no
yeah,
other movie has really done that. So,
know their franchise anyways.
yeah.
Before we moved on from Gale, I was just trying to, because she often has the best lines in the movies. I was trying to
Oh
think.
yeah.
There's one that I love in this movie when Mrs. Loomis, before you know who she is, and she's just that reporter walking around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, I love how like it seems like the reporter's just trying to get information from Gale or like
It's like
coat
another
Buddy up to,
Gale.
or like get her whatever, and Gale just is just completely unbothered by her, and then she gets really annoyed by her.
Yeah, yeah.
I love her line at one point where she just turns. Mrs. Loomis is asking her a bunch of questions, and then Gale just snaps and turns around, and like she had met her a handful of times at that point, but never bothered to ask her name. So I love when
Right.
she turns around, she snaps, and then she just points at her and says, "All right, look, local woman."
I know, she's such a bitch. I love it. But it's kind of like I remember when you and I were watching it, and I was like, "Well, how does it feel now, Gail? You're the one being pestered by a reporter. Like that's what you get." Like, so
Yeah,
I do kind of like that whole thing about it too, where it's just like, well, she's kind of getting what she deserves now for doing
I
it to Sydney and
yeah,
being such a bitch.
I just
Yeah,
love that
she's
line.
great. She's funny.
She is, and she's funny in a different way than some of the other characters. It's like a mean funny,
Yeah,
which can
yeah.
be funny
But you
sometimes
can't
too.
help but just like yeah, she's and the delivery, like Courtney Cox was so perfectly cast. They all were perfectly cast, but like I can't, like you said, I can't imagine. There's certain roles in any, different, a whole bunch of different movies where you just can't imagine somebody else playing that part. And I
Yeah,
feel like she definitely fits that.
I know exactly. We wanted to quickly, touch on Sydney and Dewey in this movie, and then we can move on to some of the other stuff. I think Sydney was great as usual. I think like her like main arc, I guess, in this movie that I really enjoy is because of what happens in the first movie, her
Hmm.
like inability to be able to trust her new boyfriend,
Oh
which ends up
yeah,
being really
yeah,
tragic because he was just a nice guy, and
yeah.
it's such a tragic moment, I think, at the end when
When she,
he's tied up to the
yeah,
thing, and then Mickey, who's the other killer, shoots him and kills him because Mickey's like, "Oh, you don't want to trust your boyfriend, don't you know history repeats itself?" Whatever he was saying, and then he kills
yeah.
Derek is his name. He kills him, and then it's such a sad line when he's dying, and Sydney like puts her hand over the gunshot, and he
Oh
like
yeah.
the last thing he says is just like, "I never would have hurt you."
Oh, I know. That is, I forgot. Well, not even forget, but like that whole side story, I remember thinking like, wow, and it makes total sense that she wouldn't. I'm
Yeah,
surprised she was even dating somebody again. I wouldn't have ever dated anybody, but like I do really like that because it shows the effect that it truly had on her, and that was really sad. Because at first, obviously, me coming into the Scream movies brand new, I'm like, okay, it could possibly be him, but then I remember thinking, and maybe I said it out loud, like, okay, but that would be too obvious because why would it be another
and if
boyfriend
that
of
had
hers?
happened, I feel like she'd be fucking celibate for the rest of her life. She'd
Right?
never get in another relationship. Her two
Right?
boyfriends tried to kill her.
Try to kill her, yeah. But again, I couldn't put it past him because I was like, I don't know. Like this movie likes to fuck with your expectations, so maybe it being another boyfriend of hers would be so obvious that they would think that they wouldn't do it. But I don't know. It was just like I didn't know who to trust. But then when that ending came, I was just like, oh my god, this poor guy actually. And that weird like musical esque scene. I mean, it was cute, but it was like really weird. When he like just like sings to her.
Oh
Is
yeah.
it like when they're in like the cafeteria or something? I remember you saying
Uh,
this this scene, it was like before it really happened. You're like, this scene is a little cringy and weird, and I was like, oh, what? What are you talking about? And then like I saw it, and I was like, are we watching High School Musical? But it was cute because I think it was supposed to show, he really
He was really
did
trying to
care about
put
her.
himself out there,
Yeah, to show her. Yeah.
which
Oh,
yeah, it was sad for him because he really was a good guy, and then it was just sad for Sydney because you can only imagine the guilt she
probably
would held
felt.
on for
Yeah.
that, for not trusting him. But yeah, that whole scene when he's like dancing around the cafeteria, and then the reasoning for why he's then later in the movie tied up to that thing on the stage is because like his frat brothers take him
Oh yeah, and he gets drunk or
because
something.
he gave Sydney in that scene his like fraternity letters. That's the necklace she has, and then I
Oh
told you
yeah.
she's still wearing it in Scream 3, which is a nice touch.
Oh, that's cute.
But it's just like really, I don't understand certain things. Like they're just gonna kick his ass because he gives his girlfriend his fraternity letters. I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird.
And again, I don't know anything about that, and I never would want to know anything about
Yeah,
fraternity
me neither.
sororities. Like how
But
Sydney's friend was trying to get Sydney to enroll in that sorority with those
oh yeah,
other
with
two girls who kept popping up everywhere.
oh my God, yeah, they were kind of like funny though. Like I remember that now. But was he what when he was tied up at the end too? Didn't he was he drunk too? Or didn't
No,
he? Oh, he just literally got beaten up by his friends.
I think they carried him away after Sydney left with her friend and
Right.
the guards or the bodyguards, and then they tied him to that, and then they kept like throwing beer on him. They put like a funnel down his
Oh
locker.
yeah,
So he
yeah, I
was
remember that.
Yeah, well, this was one of my notes. It's the beginning of the movie, but what did you think about the opening of this movie? The fact that they
Um,
went as far as, it's a movie within a movie. They had made Stab based on the first movie, and then the opening was the two characters going to the movies to see that.
oh
At
yeah,
those, I thought that scene was very well done, especially when she gets stabbed and
reminds me of
we
Brenda. I hate to say
Well, that
that,
whole
but
theater, what we were talking about, it's like I've never been to a theater that's that obnoxious.
I know, and
Everyone's running
loud and
around
crazy.
throwing popcorn
Yeah,
at you.
I've
But then it
seen
was,
people like dress up for movies or get really excited, and I've heard audiences react to certain things
yeah,
in
no,
in
I've been to
movies, but
movies
not
like
like
that.
that. Yeah,
That's just obnoxious. But
I
then
know.
it was also well done because they were so obnoxious. When she was getting
They
stabbed
didn't
and killed
realize.
by Ghostface, they
Yeah,
didn't realize it was real, and then it was really chilling or something that when she
yeah,
dies on the movie stage.
yeah. No, I. That's one thing too. Not only are all the endings of the screams awesome because they're so you're just waiting the entire movie to find out the mystery, but all the openings are really really good too. They definitely set up like like when you were in school and you had to write like a paper or something and they're like, well, make sure your opening line catches your attention because that's what books
Uh-huh.
are supposed like your stories are supposed. I feel like that's so what the Scream movies do. Every opening is literally like I can't wait till we talk about the fourth movie because I have lots to say about that because I remember that one the most because we just watched it. But but yeah, I really did like that. I figured because of the first movie and Drew Barrymore dying that somebody was gonna end up like I figured those two characters wouldn't make the whole movie, but I did like that how they made it into a
Yeah.
movie and even though it's not very believable that a theater would be acting that obnoxious, at least in your and I's experience, we've never experienced that. Maybe they are somewhere out there in the world, but
I know.
I do like that because yeah, it made it like oh, because they were all like cheering when she was getting stabbed because obviously they thought it was fake, and it's just like
Yeah.
wow, that's crazy. And he was there, the real Ghostface was there amongst all the like the you know fake ones that had were wearing the
Right.
mask for fun. Like that's pretty interesting.
I assume that I like thinking back and trying to figure out like who was Ghostface in a particular scene. I only can imagine that must have been Mickey because that wouldn't have been
Yeah,
Billy's
just
mom.
yeah.
Billy's mom wouldn't have been able to blend in as a big black guy. It would
Yeah.
have to have been Mickey in that
Right.
scene.
Yeah, and but like what's the actual motivation for killing each character in the beginning? I guess it just to
In the
scare everybody
beginning,
into.
well, there's a scene at some point in the movie where Dewey and Gale are talking to the police chief, and it was kind of a plot that was thrown away, but
Mhm.
like they wrote down the names of the three people that were killed. It was those two, and then it was Sarah Michelle Gellar's character. At
Oh
that point,
yeah, I like her too.
yeah, at that point, and Gale pointed out that they had the same names, the of the
Oh,
in the order of people that were killed in before, like
right.
I guess it was Jada Pinkett Smith. She was the big name opening
Oh
kill that
yeah.
time.
Oh
But
yeah, I forgot about that.
her name was Maureen, which was Sydney's mom's name, and then her boyfriend's name was Steve, which was Drew Barrymore's boyfriend's name, and then Sarah Michelle Gellar's character's name was Casey, and then Casey was Drew Barrymore. So that was kind of the
That's
reasoning.
confusing.
That
That's
was
a little confusing.
they kind of set that up, but then I guess to confuse you because then like that was not followed through on. Like the next
Right.
character wasn't didn't have the same name as the principal in the first movie.
Oh yeah.
So they kind of
Oh
threw
yeah.
that away to confuse you. But I guess maybe that was the intent. Maybe Mrs. Loomis and Mickey were trying to be that complicated to confuse people.
Makes sense, but
That's
it's
why the
weird.
people at the beginning were killed. That was the explanation they gave because they had the same name and they also went to the college that Sydney went to.
So it's supposed to sort of be like, I guess each beginning kill is like just like a warning, like all the killers here, and like maybe just to put everybody on
Right.
edge, and like yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Right.
So I guess
But
that's what it boils down to. You may actually have to remind me of the opening of Scream 3, like who exactly.
Scream 3, yeah.
I hate that I have that bad of a memory, but I definitely see in the Scream movies though. I feel like all of them were good enough where I definitely would watch them again, and I would love to watch them with somebody else
I would
that's blind to them. Like my boyfriend, he's
right.
never seen all of them. He actually was watching the fourth one when you and I were watching. He's like, "This is pretty good," so I think he would
Yeah.
like the other ones. So
I think it would also be cool far, far down the line. We review a series, then maybe eventually we could pick it up again and do like commentaries on that would
yeah,
be fun.
throughout it, that would be fun. I definitely, they're definitely the Halloween movies too. Honestly, I do want to watch them again. Just because it's been, I guess, was it like a year ago when we were watching? Well, it was in October. Was
Yeah.
it even around Halloween last year? I don't remember. I'm
Halloween?
have a yeah.
Yeah,
When we watched Halloween, was it like
the
around how?
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think I
it
remember.
was, and they were all like it was all the month of October that they were up, or the week of before Halloween they were uploaded, so I'm sure it was that month.
Oh, we
Uh,
had perfect timing back then. um, no, but this, I think this is definitely a series I would watch again and show people that have never seen them because I would like to see like the reactions because like
it's
even my
fun, yeah,
boyfriend
because
was really into the fourth one. Yeah,
they do have there's more to them than most slasher movies,
exactly.
which is why I think I picked this, why I wanted to show them to you,
Right.
not only because they're some of my favorites, but they are just fun to watch for the first time.
And they're
Uh,
really character driven, which I absolutely
yeah,
love because
yeah,
that's so rare in
I knew
slasher
that would be
movies.
another reason why you'd like it because of our obsession with characters and
And
character
consistency.
development,
Yeah,
Resident Evil and things.
exactly.
Um, but for Scream 2, the only other notes I have before we move on to like the killers and the twist and the ending and that whole thing is I think it's something that again you thought before I showed you Halloween and these Scream ones, but
Hmm.
there's truth to it in other areas. But I loved the scene in Randy's film class when they were talking about horror films because
Hmm.
what had just happened. That was really awesome. And then Randy sort of brings up somebody said, if do you think someone's trying to do a real life sequel? And Randy's like, why would anybody want to do that? Sequels suck.
I know, I love that. See, I love that. I love how, and I definitely want to talk about it when we get to the fourth movie, but their whole, thing with remakes too, how they kind of throw
Yeah,
shade at a lot of remakes. I do like how they do that because they
they're
know
very
it,
self-aware.
yeah, so self-aware that every horror franchise that has had more than one or two movies or whatever just end up going to shit. So I do love how it pokes fun at that. I love that.
I know. I just wanted to mention that because that was a great scene. But and then if we wanted to wrap up Scream 2 with the endings and the killer reveals,
Yeah.
um, I really liked it, and I remember when we watched it. Um, I think yeah, Mickey was revealed first, and then um,
Wasn't he just like her,
he was
Sydney's like
yeah
one
he
of the
was
college friends or
yeah he
something?
was in like
Yeah.
her circle of friends, and I remember your reaction to when Mickey said, I had to have a partner, and then onto the stage, out of a door. First they show Gale walk out, and that was such an
Oh
awesome
yeah.
misdirect. Like you were confused, but I love that she walks out first because it's like that's a good trick to the audience. Because
Yeah, I really thought it was possibly her at first. I'm like, oh my god, did she just like go psychotic because just how her personality? Like they make her such like a bitch in other parts where it could be believable that maybe she just snapped and she wants to kill Sydney
right,
because they have this
and,
love-hate relationship between the two of them. So I
yeah,
really did think at first I
and
was
I
like, oh,
loved.
what?
I know that was a great. that was a really smart use of Gale,
Yeah.
um, to trick you. But then I love when, and Sydney believes it for a minute because she sees her and she says Gale like really
Oh
like
yeah.
sternly and not even almost not even surprised. But then
Right.
I love that, and then Gale just slowly shakes her head, and then Mrs. Loomis comes out holding
With
her
like
at
a
gunpoint.
yeah, her yeah, gun, yeah.
But on her, I think she's after Billy and Stu, she might be my favorite Ghostface. I love
She is good.
female villains, and she was just so batshit. And you
Yeah.
really, she was one character that they always try to make all these characters red herrings and make them suspicious and make them suspicious. She was never suspicious. You would always just thought she was
Yeah.
just some annoying reporter bugging Gale, even to the point
Yeah.
where I was like, when they revealed her, I was like, so there was never any like, you never suspected her at all, because for me, I was like, there has to be more importance to this character than just a random reporter,
Yeah.
especially, I don't know, the actress who played her and how good of a job she did.
Oh, I
She,
love her.
she was a big enough actress at that point that that would have been a.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought is she like I didn't suspect her at all only because I thought her character was only put in there simply to sort of like annoy Gale and sort of show the haha Gale like you were such a bitch
Or
to
be like
Sidney in the
a
first one.
yeah, like be like a foil to Gale.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I really thought. I thought it was just to show like, oh, she was such a bitch to Sydney in the first one, was stalking her. Let's put a character in there that will now annoy Gale about similar things. Like that's all I thought she was going to be used for. Also, I thought, well, what's her name? Oh God, what's her name? Linda Blair was used as like a reporter
yeah,
cameo in the first one, so I thought maybe because she was a decently big actress, which I actually feel really sad I don't know her name, but
Laurie Metcalf.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, okay, maybe she's just in it to make sort of like a cameo and she's just supposed to annoy Gale. And I don't think she was in it enough for you to even really suspect her, which I liked. Like, they didn't give her enough screen time for you to be like, I don't know. She was definitely a shock. I was like, what? No. And
Yeah,
then I'm like, who is she? What's the motivation? Then finding out that she's Billy's mother on top of that was like, that was awesome.
yeah, it was great. And then I loved there was another line. Sydney recognizes her, and I guess it was smart that Sydney had never had a scene with her before. They never bumped into each other,
Yeah, just Gale. Yeah.
because she would have recognized her. And I love when she says Mrs. Loomis, and Gale is like surprised by it. And
Yeah.
Gale's like, "No, I've seen pictures." And Sydney's like, "Yeah, that was about 100 pounds and a lot of work later."
Oh, yeah, yeah. Getting all sassy with her. I love that. Because I thought, what's the other killer's name? Mickey? Is that what you said
Mickey.
his name? Yeah, he was kind of obvious. So when he was first revealed, I was like, oh come on. Like I kind of did suspect him because he's just, but I also kind of didn't because I mean, there were so many other people you could have thought that it could be. But when she walked, that was the biggest like twist because I was like, oh my god, you know. He was kind of obvious, but she wasn't at all, and she was actually like the mastermind behind it. I was just like, wow, that was definitely probably the biggest twist to me.
Hmm. No, I really liked it. I've always liked that twist. But then I guess she has more reason. Like I always said, all these things are happening to Sydney, and she didn't do anything to really bring it upon
I
herself.
know, right?
I guess Mrs. Loomis has more of a reasoning because Sydney killed her son. But then it's like, wow, you
Yeah.
must be just as crazy as your son if
Yeah,
you don't even
that's where
like.
he got it from.
But she doesn't even like understand the fact that, oh, he was trying to kill you.
Exactly. Like she's just like, I mean, I guess you can look at it as like, oh, she's a grieving parent, she's
I
going
could
kind of crazy.
understand
I
that.
get
Yeah.
it, but at the same time, yeah, you kind of any rational person would be like, okay, my son was a psychotic
I
asshole
wonder.
and he died as a result of that.
That's an interesting thought. I wonder if. Oh, I said it when we were talking about the first one. Uh, Billy's dad didn't abandon him. The mom abandoned him. But I was gonna say it's like I wonder if Billy and Sydney were dating while she was still around, if she like even liked Sydney.
Interesting. Well, she definitely doesn't in the sequel, so.
But no, I always thought that was a great twist, and then I think not quite as iconic as like the party and the big giant house to be the set piece for the end of the first movie, but I really liked the set piece here because Sydney was like an actress in her
Oh yeah,
college
and they're on
plays, and
stage. Yeah, that
yeah,
was cool. That was really cool too. I do. They
uh,
always have like cool settings too for
yeah,
like the
I love how
sequences.
yeah, because I love how Sydney runs backstage and is like pulling switches and making shit fall down on top of her.
Oh
Like
yeah, that was
beams and
yeah.
sandbags are falling from the ceiling.
That was like the perfect sort of setting for like the end climax. It was really, really cool.
I know. And then there was one character who we didn't talk about. Well, I think I mentioned him once, but we didn't really get into him. But Cotton,
Oh, he's
'cause
hot.
you kept saying that. But because he like gets out of jail, and then Gale tries to ambush Sidney with him because they find obviously he didn't kill Sidney's mom like they thought it was Billy. Um,
Yeah.
but I love how he sort of shows up at the end.
Oh, and
Um,
he actually, because at first I wasn't sure if you could trust him either, even though,
yeah, exactly,
I,
because they even showed uh, Gale finds him with blood all over his hands after Dewey gets stabbed,
oh,
and he
yeah,
just
yeah,
said
yeah,
found him, which he did,
yeah,
telling the truth.
right.
But then I love how he shows up at the end and sort of saves Sidney because Sidney agrees to do the TV interview with
I know,
Diane
so he's
Sawyer.
still kind of a dick because he has to like bargain with her to save her life,
But
but
then,
at the
but
same
no, but
time,
then at the end, he did say to her, like, or no, after Mrs. Loomis was dead, he did say, like, I hope you know I never would have, kill you or let you. It
yeah,
was
he
probably he was still
actually,
using the situation to get what he wanted, but I don't think he would actually let her get
a
killed.
lot of these characters are so selfish. I love it though because it gives them so much more depth than just an average, good
Yeah,
guy character. I do really like Cotton though, and not just because I think he's super hot, but I do think that. But I just I don't know because you do suspect him, but then he ends up turning out to actually be like a really good guy. And again, when we get into the third movie, another shocking kill like that happened. I just did like, sort of like with Randy. I thought, okay, Cotton's gonna be a
right.
stick around character now because he
All
survived.
right. Yeah.
So I didn't
Well, that
suspect for him
was
to kill
you
very
asked me
well.
to remind you of the opening kill. That was the opening scene.
Oh, there we go. So I did remember.